Hi, welcome to Talking Books and Stuff, the program that talks all about books and writing and stuff. Here's your host, Dennis Rimmer.
Hi there, welcome back. This is Talking Books and Writing and Stuff. I'm Dennis Rimmer from somewhere in Saskatchewan, and in a moment or two we will connect with Eric Wilder. But before I do that, I just want to remind everybody that we do need your help. So if you'd like to go to Patreon and give us a little bit of financial incentive to keep these things going, we'd certainly appreciate it. So yes, this is Talking Books and Writing and Stuff. With us is Eric Wilder. So Eric, how are things down your way these days?
Well, they're pretty hot.
And any tornadoes or anything weird like that?
No tornadoes or earthquakes lately, and just a lot of sun.
Well, that's good.
Many days of 100 degrees.
Oh, boy. We're talking with Eric Wilder. He has a number of books up. Apparently, though, Eric, you grew up during steamy Louisiana summers, and your grandmother would tell you tales of ghosts, magic, and voodoo. My grandmother only told me to quit throwing the eggs against the fence, so I guess you had an interesting childhood down there.
Yes, I did. Well, it was fairly rural, and consequently, you know, there weren't movies or really too many places to go, so you had to kind of make your recreation where you could.
Yep. And early life, where'd you grow up and go to school, that kind of thing?
I was born in a little town called Vivian, which is about 7 miles from the Arkansas-Texas border. And I went to school there, and I actually graduated from high school with Phil Robertson, who, you know, was the guy on Duck Dynasty.
Oh, right, yes.
And
what?
So, yeah, he graduated from high school, the same high school I went to, and so.
So, two famous people from the same high school.
Well, one famous person and one myself. He's much more famous than I probably will ever be.
And then you went on to university, I understand?
Yeah, I got my bachelor's from the Northeast. At the time, it was Northeast Louisiana State College. It's now University of Louisiana at Monroe. And I went into the Army, and when I got back, I got my master's degree in geology from the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville.
That's interesting, because just up the street from us, we have a young kid who's started a rock and gem museum. Sasula, he calls it, because a geologist with the last name of Sasula gave him his collection of precious and semi-precious gemstones, and he has a baby T-Rex in his museum and shop. It's a great place. So, say geology goes all over the world, because we're all standing on geology anyway, right?
That's exactly right, man. I'd love to visit his place.
That'd be grand.
Sounds very interesting.
Yeah, it's in Radisson, Saskatchewan, which is not too far away. Hop in the motorhome, you'll be here in 2 or 3 days. So what kind of a daily routine, Eric Wilder, what kind of a daily writing routine do you have these days, if any?
Well, you know, I generally finish 1 or 2 books a year. I had completed New Orleans Dangerous, the one that you had last October, and I started on my new book, Craters of the Moon, and by January I had about a third of the book written, intending to have a first draft done by March. But instead I got waylaid by COVID-19, and I've been at the house sheltering in place like so many others, and my focus has just disappeared, and I think I may have written 2,000 words since January, so it's not good.
Yes, this situation has turned most of us upside down and sideways, but I'm sure we'll all get through it in due time.
I think so.
What's your way back when? How did the your writing career begin? Let's say, what was the sort of the first thing that got you going on this path?
Well, I always liked writing, and I never didn't do much. I wrote some short stories while I was in college and things like that. But my actual first book that I wrote was I had a little oil company in Oklahoma City that went belly up during the oil bust of the 80s. And, I was fairly young at the time and took no responsibility. I didn't think any of it was my fault, and I was totally incensed. And so I wrote a book about it. And, the book, I don't even know where it's at now. It's in some box or someplace, but it was never published or never went anywhere. But I realized that I loved writing, and I started going to different places to learn, to be with writers, and I even went to a romance writers convention once in Oklahoma City.
Well,
and I started writing short stories, and then that went into novels, and I've even written a screenplay or two.
And so your writing, we're talking with Eric Wilder, your writing routine, are you on a old manual typewriter or a computer or pencil and paper? And because I've spoken to so many writers who have so many different ways of doing things, so just interested in how you go about the process.
Well, I write on the computer. When I was in the Army, I was an infantry machine gunner in Vietnam, but I was a college graduate, and an opening came up as a clerk typist, and they asked me if I could type, and I said, you better believe I can. And I could type 78 words on a standard typewriter. And so, I have a good background as far as the mechanics of it. And I wrote my first book on an old AT&T 2600, or, one of the first PCs. But since then, I've got a nice laptop, and that's what I do most of my writing on.
The first book that you had published, what was that?
First book I had published was called Ghost of a Chance, and it takes place on Caddo Lake, which is the largest natural lake in the state of Texas, and it involved a mystery. Another has become a series, my Paranormal Cowboy series. Buck McDivit, and his aunt is murdered, and he inherits her fishing marina on Caddo Lake, and so it's it's not great literature, but a lot of people like it.
Well, that's all that counts, I think. If people like it, why not? And then they'll come back for more. Eric,
that's exactly right.
Right, Eric Wilder is with us today. Do you plot out your books in a certain way? I know some people put notes on a blackboard or something, and other people just sit down and let her rip. Well, what kind of process do you have?
Well, it's kind of a hybrid combination of both. I, use 3.5 by 5 cards to write out some of my ideas, and then when I finally get an idea, then it just goes from there. And sometimes I throw the outline out the door. But
a lot of writers, Eric, say that they don't know where it comes from. Just all of a sudden, a story idea or a character pops into the mind, or some dialogue, and then you're off to the races. Is that phenomenon one that you have experienced in the past?
Yes, I do. It just it seems to come from the ozone somewhere out there, and the story's already written, and you just kind of channel into it and put it on paper, and it's kind of creepy.
Well, that's interesting. I was just talking to a famous Canadian musician songwriter up here, Kim Mitchell, the other day about songwriting, and he said pretty much the same thing. The song kind of is there, and he just acts as its road manager, so to speak. And he says the song is there. I just sort of control it and sort of send it in the right direction, but he says he has no control over it. So I guess that's kind of the same thing you're talking about.
It is, and it's like I say, it's if you tell someone that, they don't necessarily believe you, but
right.
If you're a writer, then I think you've experienced it more than once.
That's right. It doesn't happen to me because I can't write fiction to save my life, but I do some nonfiction stuff, so that keeps me going. And I was in radio for a number of years, so that's why we do the podcast, for fun. Talking with
Sure.
Eric Wilder, New Orleans Dangerous, the book we have, one of the latest ones. It's part of his French Quarter Mystery Series. Now, I understand, Eric, a New Orleans Dangerous, or New Orleans Dangerous, is number 8. So how did you stumble upon this genre?
Well, like my Aunt Carmel, when World War II broke out, she joined the Marines, and when she got out, she went to LSU, and she was a valedictorian, and she taught school in New Orleans, and my brother and I spent summers with her, and we couldn't have had a better cultural and history guide, because she took us to every museum, every park, taught us pretty much everything there was to know. And later, while I was in, Northeast Louisiana, I met my first wife, Gail, who was, she was the youngest daughter of a French-Acadian family down in Chalmette, which is south of New Orleans. And I learned a lot about the Cajun culture, and it's kind of like Wyatt. If I don't know the answer, I know who to ask, and so
right.
And
that's
and
right.
So I do have quite a background in New Orleans, and I feel that I was probably meant to write about the French Quarter.
And what exactly is the French Quarter? Because I've never been there, but heard about it all my life.
Well, New Orleans is over 300 years old now. In fact, I think this year it's 301 years old. And when the original French explorers were looking for an access to the river from the Gulf of Mexico, they came up St. John's Bayou. And, everyone thinks that New Orleans is below sea level, and it pretty much is, except for the little 1 square mile area that's known now as the French Quarter. And it's about 5 feet above sea level. And that's where they built the original city. And many of the original structures still exist. And of course, the city's much larger than that now, and it's more spread out. And there's people from all over the world, many cultures, and it's one extremely interesting place.
We'll have to visit it one day. Right now, though, you're in Oklahoma near historic Route 66. Is that right?
That's correct.
Haven't been to Oklahoma.
In fact, You haven't been to Oklahoma? Well, it's a neat place too, and it's a lot of people think it's just cowboys and Indians, but it's a whole lot more than that, and even more than football. So,
right.
But it doesn't have the history that New Orleans does.
No. And we're talking today with Eric Wilder, discussing, among many other things, his French Quarter Mystery Series. New Orleans Dangerous is the one I have in my hand. And Eric, I got to tell you, I love the opening line. Murders rarely go as planned. Did that just pop into your mind one day, or did you have to kind of work on that one?
Well, it about half of that. It just I was working on the story, and the guy becomes he's not a recurring character, but he was a main character, and he's planning to murder someone, and it's, not the first person he's murdered, but the first person he's murdered in many years. And so, when you're planning to do something like that, well, it's just not going to necessarily, there's always something that you probably overlooked, and so it just kind of popped into my mind, and I said, man, it sounds like a good opening for a novel.
It is, because a lot of readers such as myself, that's what we'll do. Pick up a book, look at the first line, first paragraph. And let me just read the first paragraph of New Orleans Dangerous, a novel by Eric Wilder. Murders rarely go as planned. Though Darth Heaney reflected on the thought as he field stripped a cigarette before tossing it overboard, he wasn't worried about it. So now we got an idea of a guy who field stripping is kind of like a military term, so we kind of get the idea he might have been in some kind of service. He smokes cigarettes. He's kind of a bad guy, you could say. Just all of that from what the opening paragraph. So is that kind of a fair assessment?
Yes, it is.
There you go. See, you've done your job, and you captured me as a reader, so I'm inviting everyone else to go out and get Eric Wilder books. French Quarter Mystery Series number 8 is New Orleans Dangerous. That's 8 in a series. There's lots of other ones. You mentioned Cajun, which of course is from Acadia, which is people from Nova Scotia that the English, because us Canadians aren't nice people, kicked out of Nova Scotia and made them go back down south to Louisiana area. So of course that's why you get all those French terms, because they were the French-speaking population from Nova Scotia. So you've got a food recipe book as well, and that's what's that one about?
Well, it's called Lily's Little Cajun Cookbook, and my first mother-in-law was Lily, and my father-in-law was Harvey, who was a fur buyer who actually taught me how to grade pelts. and my Lily was the first cousin to Judge Leander Perez, who was an infamous person during the integration era in New Orleans. But they taught me a lot about the culture and the history, and they're just wonderful people. And though I'm not French, like I say, they all were, and if they love you, then they'll do anything for you, and if they don't like you, you better watch out.
Okay. And one more quick question: what is etouffee?
Etouffee is a Cajun dish, and it's shrimp or crawfish, and with it's done etouffee. It's a little different than gumbo. It's not a soup. It's more of a kind of like a pilaf.
Okay, gotcha. So now I know. Eric Wilder, you have a website, I'm sure. What is it?
My website is ericwilder.com.
And Eric Wilder, those are both common spelling. So the book you were working on before this pandemic struck, Eric Wilder, are you back at it now?
I'm working on it now. It has to do with the Green Fairy and the liquor that the botanical with wormwood that was banned for decades and is now, I guess, legal again in the United States. But the same lady that kind of gave me the idea for New Orleans Dangerous mentioned about the Green Fairy, and I looked at it, and it's got my attention, and I started working on it, and it's perhaps, I don't know, I'm thinking it may be the creepiest book I've ever written. Well, when I finish it.
Okay, we'll get ready for that one. We'll keep the lights on when we read it. Eric Wilder has been our guest today here on Talking Books and Writing and Stuff, where we could use your financial help if you don't mind. Audience, just go to Patreon and you can figure out how to give us a little bit of a boost. Eric Wilder from Oklahoma, you take care, and maybe we'll talk to you next year at this time. Well, thank you, Dennis. Thanks so much.
Thank you for visiting with us today. This is Talking Books and Stuff with Dennis Rimmer. Contact him at dennis@talkingbooks.tk. Thank you, and may all the good news be yours. Oh, and don't forget to check out his book, The Great Canadian Notebook, available across Canada and at amazon.ca.